Hey folks, this is Nick Wolf, the Director of Career Services for FSB and your dedicated career coach. This is going to be our last uh, career webinar that we're going to do this semester. The next one would be negotiations, but we're actually going to have a negotiations, one of our negotiations professors do a webinar for us, it's a class, and then he's going to video it, and so you'll get that for the negotiations piece. So we've done, setting up the LinkedIn, setting up the resume, looking for jobs, doing the job search, preparing for that, and then we're moving into finding the job, interviewing, and then the next one's going to be negotiation for the offer. So tonight, though, we're talking about interviewing for success, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, um, here's what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to talk about preparing for the interview, the actual experience and then questions that you're going to get potentially, and then questions you should be prepared to ask yourself. And then we're going to look at the different types of interviews. So first of all, preparing, and what do you need to do before the day of, or even the week of? I think it starts with basically understanding yourself. You're going to need to be a great storyteller. That's what interviewing is all about. And most of the stories that you're going to tell are stories about yourself. And so when a hiring manager or an interviewer asks you a question, it's nice to be able to already have some self-reflection done, understanding, who you are, what your story tells, what your strengths are, what your opportunities for growth are, what your goals are, what your accomplishments are, how you add value, why that's the right company, and so first of all, take an inventory of your attributes. What do you bring into the table? What are the things that make you stand out, right? Understand your education. What's the background behind why you chose to take that path as opposed to any other path? Okay. The other thing is, you need to have your experience, both paid and unpaid. For most of you MBAs or the MAOLs, most of your experience is going to be, I would assume, paid, although some of your volunteer work could be meaningful to the position you're applying to. For some of you in the BAOL, the BBA program, a lot of times some of your internship, maybe your unpaid internship experience, your volunteer work, potentially could be more meaningful than even the work you're doing that you're getting paid for. I always tell students, what's more valuable, your job working, as a barista or a server, or you did an unpaid internship doing operations for a nonprofit. So you want to make sure you look at and be prepared to speak to both, but really understand what your experience looks like and how potentially it is going to be relevant to the position in the company that you're looking to apply to and that you're getting ready to interview for. Accomplishments. What have you done? What makes you stand apart? What are some of the things that you've done? We talked a little bit, actually a lot, about the resume. The whole equation of problem, task, result, right? All those things that you accomplished within these jobs that you've had, solving problems and leading people and being a good follower, those are all accomplishments that you need to be able to tell a story about. Skills and competencies, right? When somebody asked you, one, don't oversell, don't undersell. Particularly your skills, particularly your computer skills. If somebody asks you what your level of Excel is, I like to, instead of saying basic, proficient, advanced, I like to speak directly to the skills and the tools that I use within Excel. If you can use pivot tables, for some people that's an advanced skill, for some people that's not an advanced skill. And so, but to be able to say, I can develop pivot tables for sales managers, or I can use VLOOKUPs, or speak directly to the not just the skill that you have, particularly in Excel or maybe Tableau or Power BI or some other, if you're utilizing SAP, and you're using the, the general ledger portion of SAP, speak directly to that. But also what you've done within it. If you've built, models within Excel or charts and graphs, or you've created presentation data analytics for presentations in Tableau, speak directly to that. Okay. So understand what your skills are outside of your attributes, right? Your technical abilities. And then you can also speak to your competencies and your attributes, but really be able to speak directly to those. Again, I'm not, proficient in Excel. Well, what does that mean? I can do this in Excel. I can, again, create pivot tables. I can use VLOOKUPs. I can create charts and graphs. I can manipulate data, whatever that is. Speak directly to that skill. Understand what community service means and how important it is to the company you're interviewing with. Especially nowadays, a lot of companies, that service piece is really important. So again, some of the unpaid stuff that you've done, some of maybe the volunteer work that you've done is really important. And so be able to speak to that. For some of you in, again, the BAL, the BBA, talk about some organizations, the clubs, but for you MBAs, talk about the organizations. For the MAOL, talk about the organizations you belong to. If you're a part of, SHRM, or if you're a part of the NHRA or San Diego HR Forum, or if you're part of the PMP here in San Diego, or part of Cal CPA or whatever, be able to speak about those organizations. Or if you sit on a board, even if it's a nonprofit organization, be prepared to speak to that, because those are intangibles that companies are going to be looking for. Okay. And then any extracurricular activities you may have, be able to speak to your work ethic, and then definitely be able to speak to your values. The values piece to me is the why statement. Why are we a good fit for you? Why are you a good fit for us? Right? What value do you bring? What values do you have? What is your deeper purpose? How does that deeper purpose align to the company and to the position that you're looking to fill? Okay. John, any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, you want to create stories. This is again, every interview is a storytelling opportunity. They're gonna ask you, and we'll go through some behavioral based questions you may get, but really, they're gonna want to know about teamwork, deadlines, conflict, success, multitasking, coping. All of these are going to be stories that you're going to need to tell. And if they don't try to elicit those stories from you, particularly if they're positive stories, you want to make sure that you get that across, because you can tell somebody something. You can tell them, I'm a great team player, and let me give you an example of that. Or, yeah, I'm very deadline driven. Let me give you an example of that. Be prepared to tell these stories. Again, think about 2 or 3 really good stories that you could potentially use for any number of these. If I ask somebody a question, tell me about a time you had to work within a team. Tell me about what was going on with that team. Tell me about what your role in that team was. Tell me about what the outcome was. Right. So tell me this story about this team. There's this old, and it's not old, a lot of companies still use it. It's called the STAR method of interviewing. A lot of sales organizations use it. It's about situation, task. It's STAR, situation, task. What your role in, I don't know what what your role in it, and then the result. Right. So the STAR testing, be able to tell that story. And so again, if I tell a story about working on this project within a team, that could also be potentially a good story of dealing with conflict, if there was conflict, or having to meet deadlines. You don't have to think of a story for every single situation that may come up. I want to tell you right now, I don't know, you don't know what the question is they're going to ask. Students come to me, Professionals come to me all the time. What do you think they're going to ask me? I have no idea. I know what I would ask within an interview. I've been interviewing for almost 30 years. So I know what I'm looking to gain. And every time I move to a different company, I would ask different questions because what was important at one company maybe wasn't important at another company. So you don't have any idea what they're going to ask you. The only thing you can do is be prepared with 2 or 3 good stories, positive stories that you can use even when dealing with conflict. The end result should be the conflict was resolved and we moved on and got whatever we needed to get done. And so 2 or 3 good stories about, again, working within teams, meeting deadlines, dealing with conflict, dealing with success, how I multitask, and coping with things. The big thing that a lot of people miss is they'll use phrases like, "Well, we did this and we did that." They want to know what you did. So you got to be, this is where that STAR method comes in. Be very specific about what your task was. Were you the leader of the group? Were you the data person in that group? Were you the project manager within that group? Were you the marketing person within that group, managing all the content? Were you the finance person within that group, managing all the budgets? Be able to speak directly to what your specific role was. I think that's probably, when I think about these stories, that's what's most important. What's second most important is don't drone on. A good story has a beginning, middle, and end. Where we usually miss the mark is on the end. We don't know how to end our stories. And so usually we'll know how to start them. Usually we'll know how to, kind of deliver kind of that middle part, the crescendo of the story. And then you come in and you're ready to land it and you just can't land it. And so what I want you to do as you're creating these stories, storyboard them, write them out. And in that ending, the end result should be the result. So if I were telling a story about teamwork, it would be, I was working on this project. My role was the project manager. As the project manager, I was responsible for making sure that everything was coordinated, the vendors, the marketers, the whoever. Here's what I did. Here's some of the tasks that I did. Here's some of the conflict that I dealt with. The good thing is, in the end, we were able to make sure that this client got what they needed, and it resulted in a 30% increase in revenue for us. I've just ended it, which resulted in which led to. So use that verbiage or those words to end your story. Okay, so talk about yourself, like what your responsibility, how you contributed to it, and then make sure you can bring it to an end. We're talking a story should be no more than a minute to a minute and a half, 2 minutes. That's max. It should be succinct. It should be, but it should also be telling of who you are, what you bring to the table, how you've accomplished things. Okay. Next, do your research. I think this is some of the most important thing. I'm going to keep saying everything. Everything is the most important thing, but really, it's important that you know the company that you're meeting with, and this is where, again, when we went back to the job search, searching for the companies that you desire to work for, not just a company. So if I get an interview with an organization, I'll never forget when I came here to interview at Point Loma 11 years ago. I was an alumni, so I already knew everything about the organization. But that didn't mean I couldn't still research. I had to go look for the people that I was interviewing with, what's changed since I was there, and I needed to be able to speak to that. It was a good thing I did because they asked me questions that were specific to things that I needed to research about PLNU since I hadn't been there in 25 years or so. And so it's really important that you know the position that you're recruiting for or that you're interviewing for, the company, and ideally the people that you're meeting with. So how do you find out that information? Bunch of different ways. A company site, you can go look at the company site and see who are the key players there. Ideally, like LinkedIn, is probably the best to understand who the people are that you're going to be meeting with. It gives you insight into, do they have longevity there, or are they new to the role? Are they new to that specific position, but longevity within the company? So do your research. Be prepared to answer that why question. Why are we a good fit for you? Right? Why are we the company that you want to work for? Why is this the role that you want to take? Be able to speak to that directly. Okay. You can also look on Facebook, Twitter, Google. Just do a general Google search. Is a good way. To me, LinkedIn though is the best way to understand who's working there. You can also get a sense as to the culture. I'll look through LinkedIn and see all the people that are working there. Are they young? Are they old? Where do they come from? What schools did they go to? I'll look at their LinkedIn, uh, the company's LinkedIn site, and see everybody who's working there. Does this look like a place that I'd be interested in working at? Are these folks coming from schools that I'd be similar to mine or different than mine or whatever? Understanding what that culture looks like, you can go get a lot of that from LinkedIn. So utilize it. Do your research. Here's some, ask obviously a appropriate business tire. This is kind of for, maybe I use this for some of our undergrads, but just know what you're wearing. A lot of times now it's a business casual. I always, for an interview, I dress up, even if the company's like, "Well, we're business casual." I dress up. I'll never forget, one of my clients was Billabong, and I used to send everybody there in a suit, and they would get, so the VP of finance would always get mad at me and said, "Nick, stop sending people in suits." I'm like, "I'm sorry, they're there to interview. I'm not going to have them come out in shorts, and I know that's how you are. They've got to earn the job first." And so he got that, but always dress better than you think you should. And so I think that's important. uh, I think, again, a lot of times people don't like to boast about what they've accomplished, and so it's okay to brag on your achievements, right? And so think about those, refer to them, think about them so they're fresh in your mind. Um, know the possible answers to questions that you're going to be asked before you walk in the door. And here's the big one: know your resume. I've had people come in and on their resume they'll say, "Hey, one of my interests is I like to read books." First question I ask them: "Hey, so what's the last book you read?" What do you mean? Well, you said you like to read books. Right? Or, "Hey, you said you were here during this time, but you just said this." Know your resume, have your resume. One of the things that I want to make sure that you also know, just as a general tip, uh, people will often bring in their padfolios. And it always concerns me when they bring in their padfolios and they'll set them down on the desk and won't handle them at all. Again, and I'm like, "Okay, is that a prop for the interview? What was the purpose of you bringing that in?" I like to, before the interview starts, I like to have my, you know, notepad, whatever I'm using. First of all, I write all my questions in that. Okay. All the questions I'm gonna ask, I write those in. And the first thing I do is I say, uh, would it be okay if I took notes while we talk? And interviewers love that, because again, it shows that you're one, this is a serious for you, and two, you're organized, you're detailed. I want to make sure I get everything right. I want to make sure that I'm taking notes while we talk. Is that okay? Perfect, thank you. And I take notes. Don't walk in with your padfolio, set it down, and don't touch it again. Okay. So have your questions written in there, and then again, take notes. If they say something that you think's meaningful, write it down and go, "Oh, okay, I'll remember that." Okay. And then again, know your resume. John, any questions on that or any of that?
No, no,
Okay.
everything's great.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, Next, also practice. It's really important that you practice your answers. Like, I like to time them even. The video thing, I like to have that in there. Uh, I don't think it's really that necessary, but if you have the opportunity to videotape yourself, we do it with our mock interviews, which is great. But if nothing else, if somebody asks, if you get asked a behavioral based question, have your story down, write your story out. And again, max 2 minutes, beginning, middle, and end. Here's the project we worked on. Here's what my role was. Here's how it went. The end result was this. And so just clearly write it out and articulate it. I think we're good on that. I want to get to, again, first impressions. Don't negate I always have to say this because it always happens, no matter how many times I say it. Don't negate the receptionist, or don't negate the person that's greeting you. You never know what their role is, right? You never know. And so be kind, be gracious, be early, not too early, but be early enough to where you can sit down, you can relax. Try and make as much small talk as you possibly can. Again, ask permission to take notes, and we'll talk about closing for the job here at the end. And then, yeah, be mindful of mirroring the interviewer. Here's what I told a student this today. Companies are not necessarily hiring specifically for skills. Almost every hiring manager I ever worked with, and even myself as a hiring manager, for me, culture fit was 99%. I could teach anybody anything. I wanted somebody that was going to fit within my organization, that wasn't going to disrupt the flow of my team, that was going to come in and add value, but also I tell people all the time, you're going to work 60 hours a week with these folks. You probably should like them and they should like you. So a lot of it's just, being a good culture fit, being yourself. And so more than anything, more than any of this other stuff, it's really important that they like you. And so you may not have all the skills that they're looking for, but you just, again, be yourself. This is why the prep is so important, that you, one, go to a company that's meaningful to you, and then it's just not a job. And so when you get there, you can really articulate the why behind why you're there, and then it's much more relaxing. It's much more it's a much more easier interview. So and again, ask permission to take notes. So So here's some of the typical questions. What I find is there's good interviewers and then there's bad interviewers. And so a good interviewer will maybe ask a question and then continue to chip away at that question until they get what they need. And so you may get asked follow-up questions. Again, if I say, tell me about a time that you blah 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 blah, and you don't give me that result, I'm going to say, well, tell me what happened at the end. Was there any conflict there? So if you say something, that may lead me to another question, then I'm going to ask another question related to what you said. That's why it's really important to kind of keep your questions pretty succinct. Give them what they need. Don't give them too much. You don't want them to continue to probe. Okay. So the behavioral based questions are going to be, tell me about yourself, right? Or I'm sorry, tell me about a time. The first question, typically the icebreaker question, is this one: tell me about yourself, right? And what are they trying to elicit here? They're just trying to sorry, I'm moving this so you can see it. They're just trying to create some small talk. They want to know who you are. And this is a good one. This is your 30-second elevator pitch. Don't get too personal, right? Don't ramble. Stay focused on the things about yourself that make you qualified for the job. But again, what's the beginning, middle, and end? If you're an MBA and you're applying to a role, you're not going to tell them about your time in the undergrad. You're not. If you're finishing up your undergrad, you're probably not going to go back to high school. It starts. Well, I'm a lifelong San Diegan. I originally went to San Diego State, got my MBA here. I'm currently working in this role. You know, I typically wasn't looking for a role, but I noticed this role on your website. You know, I feel like I was a good fit. Dot 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 dot. And here's the end. You know, and I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. Uh, really looking forward to learning more about the role and about the company. And I again just thank you so much. That's it. So you've ended. So know what that end's going to look like. Literally articulate it in your mind over and over again. What is the end of this? Because this is the one where most people ramble. Tell me about yourself. And people go on and on and on and on. And so understand that that beginning, middle, and end, that end should almost always be. And again, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. Really excited to be here and learn more about the role in the company. That's it. That's a great ending to any tell me about yourself. Okay. Everything else is fine. You got where you drone on is not understanding what the ending should be. Okay. Uh, some of the other questions you're going to get, you know, what are your strengths? Um, this is a weak interviewer question. You know, there's other ways to identify what people are great at, what their strengths are, and what they desire to do, other than just asking what are your strengths. Um, you know, have this prepared. I, I I don't believe a lot of companies are really asking it much anymore because it is such an antiquated question. There's again other ways to ask it or to find it out, but be prepared to have a good strength. You know, make sure it's something it's geared toward the specific position you're applying to. You know, for me, I'm all about world class customer service, whether it's internal customers or external customers, and so I talk a lot about when I talk about my strengths, it really is about the level of customer service I like to deliver. And so that could be a strength. And then, you know, let me tell you a story about that, how that played out. And then you go through that. So the strengths is a question that gets asked. Same with the weaknesses. That's a terrible question in my opinion, but it gets asked still. And so a couple of things. Don't make a strength a weakness. Don't say, well, you know, I just work too hard, you know, or, you know, I'm just so detailed. You know, that's trying to turn that around to a strength. I never asked the question, but the people that I knew that asked it, what they were trying to get out of this was just, are you self aware? Right? Are you intuitive enough to know that you have weaknesses? And two, what is that weakness and how are you coping with it, right? And so if it's I like, you know, sometimes, not always, you know, wow, if I could think of a weakness, maybe it's because sometimes I over communicate too much, you know, and what that looks like. And then yeah, you know, I'm trying to be more intentional about it, really trying to work on that. And so you know, I've got a plan to work through that. That's it. So here's the weakness, here's how it manifests itself, and here's what I'm doing to resolve it. Hopefully, again, you're not going to get those. But you know, again, don't be honest. Be honest. Everybody's got a weakness. That's what they're looking to get out of this. Can you be honest and can you be introspective enough to know that you have a weakness? And then are you trying to deal with it? Or do you just like, too bad? You just deal with it. Sorry. No, I understand this about myself and I'm trying to work on it. That's it. Understand your accomplishments. Again, we talked about that. Um, uh, this is a question that I've heard a couple of times, and I don't like it. Again, would you hire you for this job? Uh, I still have that on there, but I don't think it's that relevant. I think the more relevant question is, you know, what sets you apart? Why are you the best fit for this role over anybody else that we've met? Right? We've met 50 people. Why are you the best fit for this role? What makes you stand out? And at that point, you want to really speak to the company why, the deeper purpose why. Why are you a good fit? Well, I'm a good fit because, you know, I know the company, I know your values, I know what you stand for, and a lot of the things that you stand for, I stand for, you know. And so list those off and give examples if you can. Um, this why should we hire you over the finalists for this position? I think again that's that why statement. You know, the other one, why do you want this job? It's not the why. Why are you the best fit for this job? Why is this role the best? Why we have another role? Maybe that's the best fit for the role. Is it about the company you want to work for? Or is it about the specific job that you're applying to? And so know that. Um, tell me about what you know about our company. You're not going to get that asked one that much. They may say, ask you, what do you know about us? That may come up. I don't see that a lot again, but I always want to make sure I integrate because you got to be prepared for anything, anything. And can you prepare for anything? No, you can only prepare for what you can control, right? Good stories, being self-aware, understanding who you are, understanding who the company is, right? Those are the things that you can prepare for. They could ask you, what's your favorite color? Uh, I don't know. I've heard some silly ones. Um, so it's hard to prepare specifically. Most of the companies still are doing behavioral based questions, and it depends on your level. If you're interviewing for a senior manager role, those are going to be different interviews than a basic, internship interview. And so you have to be more prepared. They're going to talk about strategy at that point. They're going to talk about your leadership experience at that point. They're going to talk about, how you've generated revenue, or what's some of the most difficult people you've had to manage, or tell me about your customers, or how have you differentiated your department from other departments in your company, things like that. So again, based on the level that you're interviewing for, they're going to change. Okay, let's see here. So see, these are some of the behavioral based. Tell me about a time when you've had to meet a deadline, when you've had to work with a difficult personality, when you've had to solve a problem, when you've had to work in a team, multiple projects, times you failed, times you've had to deal with change, when you had to motivate or be motivated. Again, be short and specific. What was your part and what was the result? And again, the result should always end with, and this led to, or which resulted, and it actually resulted in this client being, satisfied, or which resulted in, three other client referrals, or which resulted in, an excess of revenue, or a decrease in expenses, or whatever it was. So, and it doesn't always need to be quantitative. That's the other thing. The result doesn't always have to be quantitative. It could just be, and this project actually resulted in rebuilding our customer service plan. And so it can be qualitative, or it resulted in a much more dynamic, much stronger team, which really enhanced what our culture looked like. Doesn't always have to be quantitative. It can be qualitative as well. Okay. So here's the funny, people ask me all the time, what question should I ask? Well, what do you want to know? I don't know I know what I want to know. So I have specific questions that I'd like to ask, but whatever you want to ask is whatever you want to ask. The only thing I can say is, one, when they say, so John, do you have any questions? Well, in fact, I do. I actually wrote some down because I'm prepared. You don't say I'm prepared, but they'll see because I'm prepared. Yeah. So I actually did write some questions down. And so you have your questions written down. The last thing you want to do is go, yeah, well, tell me about the job, right? That's not a strategic question. That's not a thoughtful question. So 3 things. Your questions need to be thoughtful. We don't talk about money right now. We don't talk about vacation or benefits right now. We don't talk about the role right now. We talk about strategy. We talk about more thoughtful things. What's going on with the department? What's going on with the organization? Who they are as a leader? Whatever you want to know. So they need to be that. 2, if you're in your last interview, the very last interview, you've had 7 interviews, right? Every single time you interview, you better have questions. So at the last interview, you're meeting with the senior person, and they say, so John, tell me about questions. What questions do you have? Don't go, well, I think everybody already answered it. No. Yeah, actually, in fact, I wrote some down. Have questions specific to that individual and that specific individual's role. Okay. And again, have them written down. So let's look at some of the ones that I typically would like to ask, and these aren't all of them, but so this is a good one, and it's ask it in your own way. But what's the single largest problem facing your staff right now? Would I be in a position to help? This probably is not my first question, but I would like to know, what are you looking for me to get accomplished? First 90 days, first month, first 60 days, first whatever, first year. What are the problems that you'd like to have me solve if I came on board, right? And so, yeah, I'd love to have you be able to step in and start designing some marketing materials for us. I'd love to have you come in and start working on this new website that we're working on. And so again, how can I help you solve this problem? Okay. One of my favorite questions, and which will tell you a lot, and I'll tell you exactly what it's going to tell you, is, so can you tell me why the role is open? Okay, so there's potentially three scenarios. Uh, Somebody quit. Actually, four scenarios. Sorry, somebody quit. Somebody got fired. Somebody got promoted, or it's newly created. Okay, one of those, the newly created, means potentially, potentially this could be a long process. That's what I'm trying to find out from this role, from this question. Why is the role open? I want to know who's doing the work right now. Is this a critical need position? And so if they tell me, well, actually, yes, somebody left, or actually somebody got promoted. Oh, congratulations. Who's doing the work now? Well, actually, they're backfilling it and they're going to keep working until we hire the right person. Oh, so I shouldn't be expecting a call tomorrow. It sets your expectations about when this position is going to get filled. If it's newly created, if they say, well, actually, it's a newly created position, really awesome. What created that need? Well, we just kind of looking for the right. Okay, so you're going to take your time, and this could be drawn out months or who knows how long. Or we actually have a new client. This client's pushing us to get some work done for them, and so, or we've got a new department we've just added, and they're looking to push us to get some work done. Oh, perfect. That means it's probably a critical need position, and then that'll follow up with another question we're going to ask. So, why is this role open? Somebody quit, somebody got fired, somebody got promoted, it's newly created. This is going to tell you a lot about the time that it's going to take for this position to get filled. If it's a critical need, it'll be quick. If it's newly created and they'll wait for the perfect person, which there is no such thing, then it's going to probably take a while, right? Skills, ideally, what are you looking for in this person? So that's one. You can ask them about themselves. Don't get too caught up on asking them so much about themselves. Yeah, hey, I know you've been here for a few years. Tell me about what it's like. Tell me about your experience here. Or hey, I see you just left here, there to come to here. What made you want to decide to come work here? What was it about this company that made you shift? So that's a good question. Typical day, week. I think it's more about, what do you typically try to get done? Again, what's the work? What are you trying to get done? What problems are you trying to get solved? How are those problems solved? And how can I be a resource? How can I be a value add to that? Okay. Again, how do you see this position contributing to the success of the organization? What do you think? If it's a brand name, maybe you don't need to ask this, but who are your competitors? Or I see ideally you should find out who their competitors are. Hey, I see these are your competitors. What makes you guys stand out? What's different about you? What do you bring to the table that they're not? And then you can ask about, hey, what's the team like? Tell me about the team. Or you can ask, 5-year goals, right? What's the company going to be? Where are you going to be in 5 years? What does this company look like in 5 years? So again, nothing about money, nothing about benefits, nothing like that. If they bring up money, okay, if they say, so what are you looking for? Don't be vague. The next one's going to be on negotiation. Don't say, well, it's more about the position. What are you guys offering? Don't allow them to make the first number. Don't allow them to say the first number. You should already be there with a number in your head. You should already know the number that you're asking for. You should know based on what your needs and your wants are. You should know based on what the market bears in San Diego. You should know based on what this potential position bears, and your years of experience. So you should already need what your need is, what your want is, and what your worth is. And so you should already have a number in your head, and it shouldn't be a range. It should be, ideally, I'm looking close to 90. If that's what market bears, that's what market bears. And they may say, well, where'd you get that number? Actually, based on the research that I've done, based on what my needs are, based on my budget, based on where my skill sets are, I think that's a viable number, right? And if they say no, well then, okay, well, no, what are you looking to pay then? And so we'll get them to say the number. But you should be the one to really throw that number out there. If they mention it in the first interview, at some point they will. And so you need to understand what that looks like. And again, that negotiation webinar we're going to do in a couple of weeks, that'll help set that up. So, again here, how can I best contribute to the department? Immediately, 90, 80 days, a year out. What particular achievements would equate to success? I don't use that. Typically what I like to ask is, how do you guys define success? Whatever the role is, how do you define success? What does success look like in your department, right? And so I think that's a valuable question. Who will I be part? I don't like to. Who are my internal customers, right? Who outside of our department are my other customers? Because my team's my customers, and I'm all about world-class customer service. But who else in the department or who else in the company will I be working with, or will I be working with anybody else? Who are my other internal customers? Okay. Okay. The other thing I will say is, here's the close. Not just sales, every job, and I've had CEOs, I've had CFOs, I've had senior level people not close for the job and then not get the job. And they're like, why didn't I get the job? And I'm like, I don't know. Walk me through what this looked like. And I'll say, well, did you close for it? And they're like, I forgot. And I said, okay. So what does that close look like? Typically what happens is you're going to ask your question. 4 questions. You should have 4 prepared, thoughtful questions. And then if you start to get into conversation, potentially you can ask more, but really have 4 good questions. After you're done with those, you're going to talk for a little bit more and they're going to say, well, Nick, do you have any other questions or any thoughts? And you're going to ponder before. First of all, I didn't say this because hopefully I don't have to. But when they ask you a question, don't just jump right into the answer. Ponder for a second, right? Okay. Think about that. Don't continuously say, what a great question, but go, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. So when at the end of the interview, when they say, so Nick, we appreciate you coming in. Anything else you want to add, or do you have any other questions? Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know your time's valuable. And so I really appreciate that I've been given the opportunity to come and interview for this role. I do want to let you know that I think based on what we've talked about today, based on the skills that I'm bringing, the problems that you're looking to get solved here, I do think this seems like a good fit. Could you tell me what the next step in the process is? That's going to give you some insight. That's going to tell them first and foremost, he's interested. Cool. We don't have to, there's no ambiguity there. He is interested in the role. He just closed us without saying, God, I want this job. No. Hey, this sounds like it's a great fit. I think based on what I'm looking for, based on what you're looking for, I think this could work. So there you go. We've closed. They know that I'm interested in the role. The second thing is when I ask, so can you tell me what the next step in the process is? Well, we're interviewing another 30 people. Okay, so it's going to be long drawn out. Well, actually, Nick, we're kind of quickly moving into second rounds. We'll probably know something within the next day or two. Well, there you go. I know maybe to wait by the phone. And so it's going to give us some insight into how long this process is going to last, and they're going to know that I'm interested in the role. And so close for it, right? Don't forget to do that. Let's see, what else here? Follow up, obviously take a card. It's really important that, give it a day, but the next day, I used to be all into handwritten notes. I don't think that's necessary anymore. I think you can just shoot them an email. Make sure you check the email. Make sure that there's no typos. And so send your email out. And again, reiterate, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. I gathered a lot more information about the role and about the company, about you as a leader. You know, again, I'm extremely interested in this opportunity. I think that I bring something different than maybe other people have. I've got this, and this. You know, if you remember, I spoke about this, and I know that's one of the things you're looking to get done. So please let me know, if you have any additional questions, and I look forward to speaking with you again. And that's it. Okay. And keep looking, right? It's really important that you just keep going. You keep interviewing. You keep interviewing until you have offers. Okay. And so again, if you follow up with them and they've said we're gonna follow up with everybody that we're bringing back in the next day or two. On the second day, don't call them. Hey, what's going on? How come you guys haven't called me? You ghost me? No, you give it a week or so. And then after you've sent your thank you note email, you give it a week. And then if you haven't heard a week, you then shoot another email. Hey, John, I know that you said that you were, kind of looking to get this done quickly. Just wanted to follow up with you to make sure you know that I'm still, very interested in this opportunity. And then if they get back with you, they get back with you. If they don't, typically my response after the second or third one was, it's, hey, John, I really appreciate you again meeting with me. I'm going to assume at this point, because you said it was a critical need, that you've probably already found somebody, or maybe you're caught up in some additional work, but just wanted to let you know, if things have changed, not a problem. Just keep me in the loop, and if not, thanks so much. So you don't have to, and at some point you just have to realize either they're going to hire you or they're not. Either they're going to move you to the next round or they're not. And don't keep going, keep looking. Don't stress about it. It wasn't meant to be, or maybe it was meant to be. Okay. And so don't bug them, give them some time, but that first email, that first thank you email should be kind of right away. The next day, not right after you leave, the next day. A couple other things, right? You're going to have telephone interviews, Zoom interviews, treat them the same. Telephone interview, is a little less. One, I don't like them because it's hard to understand who the person is they're actually engaging with. Zoom's a little bit better. At least you have a face to a name. And so that's good. Again, dress professionally. Everything in a Zoom interview should be exactly like you're doing it in person. Even with a phone, dress up, sit down, go to a quiet place. The most important thing is make sure you have good, one, phone coverage, and two, connectivity. The worst thing that can happen is you're halfway through your Zoom interview and your computer crashes. So make sure all that's really good. Quiet space. Again, have your resume handy. Say, still, hey, do you mind if I take notes while we talk? Perfect. And then, oh yeah, I actually have some questions written down. Those ones, the Zoom interviews, the telephone interviews, going to be much shorter. Those are probably recruiters interviewing you, just kind of doing the first stage. They're going to probably be 10 or 15 minutes. Nobody can be an hour on the phone or even an hour on Zoom. So there's going to be quick ones. So you still want to put the same effort into them, but expect to, tell me about yourself. Why do you want the job? Why are you a good fit? And then how much money do you want? That's what a recruiter is typically going to ask. When can you interview again? So those are going to be kind of those interview questions. Those are just going to be kind of the pre-ones before you go up to the hiring manager. So that's interviewing. No questions. John, do you have any questions?
At this time, no, Nick.
Okay.
This is a really great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to, folks, I will make sure that Tristan gets this. I'm going to stop recording right now. And then I will